We have a major problem in the UK at the moment with the prison system. In fact, we have three problems. The first problem is that they are pretty much 99% full, meaning there are fewer than 1,000 places available, bearing in mind there are 73,000 Crown Court cases awaiting trial, and that's not even including the magistrates' cases, which could indeed send somebody to prison, but just Crown Court cases alone, there are 73,000. Now, just bear that in mind for a moment. 73,000 people have been charged with something. They are being prosecuted so serious that it's going to the Crown Court, meaning it's so serious that the Magistrates' Court have either declined jurisdiction or it's an indictable-only offence, etc. But 73,000 that could go to prison for fewer than 1,000 spaces. Work that out. That's the first problem. The second problem is that the plan to deal with this is ostensibly to release people early. So given that some people have been sent to prison, obviously for an offence that warranted custodial sentence, meaning it's past the custody threshold, meaning that a fine or community order or a combination would not be sufficient and only a custodial sentence would do, and judges have decided that, so they've gone to prison. The plan now to free up spaces is to let some people out early. Now, with great respect to everybody involved in the system, that makes a mockery of the system. And I, as a member of the public, I think you'd be right to mock the system. I don't think that is a silly thing to say at all. And the third problem, which is a little bit taboo, so much so that most of the media outlets do not talk about it. So for that, I would urge you, please do subscribe to my channel, like the video and share it and so on, because without me doing this channel, you may not hear about these details. But the third problem is this. Roughly 11%, which is just over 10,000 offenders in prison right now, are foreign national offenders. With the caveat that the government has no accurate statistics, believe it or not, they have no accurate statistics of the precise status of these foreign national offenders in our prison system. In other words, they don't know exactly whether they have a right to be in the UK or not. Many of them probably don't. All of them perhaps don't. But why is it that the media is not talking about this as an issue? Because, to put it quite frankly, if they do have no right to be in the UK, then they really shouldn't be in our prison systems, taking up 11% of the 88,000 odd spaces that we have in our prison system. Now, the second plan that they have is to build new prisons, investing billions of pounds for new spaces. But there's another problem with that as well, because not only are there over 10,000 in our prisons at the moment who are foreign national offenders about whom we don't really know precisely whether they have a right to be in the UK or not, but doubtless thousands of those that are currently awaiting trial may also be foreign national offenders who may also have no right to be in the UK. Plus, just last year, Labour was accused of ignoring safety of UK residents because 17,000 foreign national offenders were released from prison and still walking the streets of Britain without being deported. Now, the reason that's of major concern is roughly 13,500 or so of the current prison population are recalls. For example, let's take somebody who was given a 4-year sentence. Let's say they served half of it and released on licence. So for the remaining period of that sentence, they are released into the community on licence, regardless of whether they had any right to be in the UK or not. And if they commit a further offence, then they are recalled to prison. So 13,500 in prison at the moment are there because they've committed a further offence having already been released from prison. So that's roughly 15%. So if we assume a 15% further offence rate of those that are in prison and released from prison and so on, you can probably guess that roughly 15% of the 10,000 that are currently in prison who are foreign national offenders may go on to re-offend and may then be recalled to prison. So let's talk for a moment, which is the third problem, which is the problem that people won't talk about. So why do I have an issue with it? Why is it taboo? And why are we talking about it? Well, quite frankly, a lot of people might take the view that if someone has no right to be in the UK, that they shouldn't be in our prison system. That is not a right-wing thing to say, and frankly, to label any such view as right-wing, I think is lazy, inaccurate, insulting, and a little bit of a weak argument against somebody who just wants to protect the UK and its citizens from those that are not supposed to be here. Now again, my video here is not to drum up any kind of hate. This is an adult discussion about things that we should be able to talk about. But why then, which should hopefully give you a reason to subscribe to my channel, Why then do we not see anything about this in the media when they are talking about this very problem? This is The Guardian, and this one is the BBC, this is Sky, and this is also Sky. But if we go back to The Guardian for a moment, just searching for the words of foreign national offenders or anything that includes anybody that is a foreign national offender do not appear on this page. And yet they are talking about the jail time for recalled offenders being limited to free up spaces. So this talks about the plans of limiting the period of time someone gets recalled to prison for to 28 days. So they could, in theory, let's say, go back to the 4-year sentence bit for a moment, they could, in theory, if they've served 2 years, they could, in theory, be recalled to prison for the remainder of that 4 years, so another 2 years. The plans are potentially to limit that to 28 days, as opposed to the rest of the 2 years, which may well be an insult to the victims of those crimes, both the old and the new crimes, if said person has reoffended once they've been released from prison and recalled to prison, only for 28 days. That's plan number one. Plan number two is to release people early, which equally some people might find offensive, particularly victims, families of victims, and anybody else generally might find that quite offensive. If indeed, as you can read here from Sky, the plan to free up some prison space is to limit the amount of time people serve in prison to 40% of their sentences rather than 50%, which is the typical amount. So typically, if you're not aware of this, if you get a prison sentence of 4 years, the sentence is the overall duration for which you are subject to the order of the court. You will typically then serve 50% of that in custody and 50% on license. On license means you must also still comply with any order of the court or any requirement of the probation service, which sometimes might mean you have to live at a particular address. You may be subject to other restrictions such as not visiting certain areas, not contacting certain people, perhaps doing rehabilitation courses or offender courses or all sorts of other things that they might throw in there. They may be subject to any one of a number of things for the period for which they are on license, i.e. the bit that they don't serve in custody. But if they reoffend, then they can be pulled back to prison. But part of this new plan now is not only will they perhaps only serve 40% of the sentence rather than 50% of the sentence, but if recalled to prison for reoffending, that might be limited to 28 days. But going back to the third problem. The third problem is this. All of these stories go into great detail about the plans on the 28 days, the plans for the 40%, the plans to build new prisons, spending, I think it's close to £5 billion over the next few years, to inflate the prison population by I think I read somewhere, by about 30,000 places. But nowhere in any of these articles that I've read from The Guardian, from the BBC, from Sky News, are they talking about the prison population that pertains to foreign national offenders. So why is this taboo to talk about? Because a lot of people probably do talk about that, or maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree and no one's really concerned about it. But it seems to me that it is something people are concerned about. People do talk about on messaging platforms such as X. You can follow me on X. I am D. Shensmith. I am on X. I am not on Blue Sky or whatever it's called. I'm not on there, but I am on X. I'm on Instagram, etc. You can follow me in those places as well. But speaking about X and the conversation there, we do have discussions there about foreign offenders being 71% more likely to commit sex crimes, for example, than British nationals, and Robert Jenrick as Shadow Justice Secretary looking at the very valid point that we should be considering removing the 10,000 foreign national offenders instead of releasing dangerous prisoners early, or indeed capping the amount of time for which they spend in prison once they are recalled to prison for further offences. So I ask you, why is it taboo? Why is it not in the media? Why are most of the media not talking about this point? Is it just because they want to avoid the discussion that there are foreign national offenders in our prison systems that are making up around 11% or so, when I'm quite sure that many of you probably agree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. Please do like the video and subscribe. This is probably one of the few ways that you will get these views out to you. So please do like the video and share it and subscribe to the channel. That helps the channel grow. And as always, thank you for watching.